It looks like it. We have the clocks going. Let's see how we're doing here on YouTube. You guys, YouTube is always a little slow, but I think they'll get there. And we're live on X, and there we go. Now we're going. All right, see? Technology. Gotta love it. Once again, we are having our live chat tonight. Thank you, as always, for joining and coming in. Just in case you are new, this story is this. I will be breaking down the themes for this evening. Some thunderstorms approaching, for example. And, of course, we will take all your questions. All the questions will be answered in the premium chat. So, as always, if you have any questions as a premium member, you will get them answered. Even the crazy ones. Sometimes I get it. If you're on YouTube or X or Facebook, thank you for joining and following along. Really appreciate it, as always. Your questions are based on, well, what's realistic. In other words, if you ask, hey, is it going to snow 50 inches in my backyard? I'm just going to skip over it. If you ask something that is, really thought-provoking, like, for example, what would be the impact of all of the water vapor from the Hungatanga volcano? Then bring it on. I would love to answer them. Or if you have questions about climate change, thunderstorms in general, all that good stuff. But as always, tonight we have some interesting topics to cover because the weather is always interesting. So let's dive right into it, shall we? And pull up the list data. Now, it's been a bit hot today, and I am not happy about it. Susan, are you happy about it?
Happy about what?
About it being hot out?
No.
Yeah, so we don't like the heat. The heat could go where it belongs, which is in Florida. Not interested in it at all, but unfortunately it took a visit today and produced record highs in Atlantic City. It got up to about 97 degrees here in Freehold, New Jersey, with a heat index of 108, and it can go away. And it is. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit stormy. These thunderstorms are diving in, and we just got, look at this, right on time. We had a severe thunderstorm warning heading right into our neck of the woods here in Freehold, New Jersey. Wonderful. So we can talk about this as the thunderstorm rolls right in throughout this evening, which is going to be fun. But hopefully we don't lose power. But I got a generator, so it should be okay. Why are we seeing these thunderstorms? Well, obviously we have a polar air mass that's starting to drop in, and it's kind of a polar maritime area that's starting to dive into the region. And the combination of that is starting to trigger these thunderstorms. But there's a couple other factors as well that has me a little concerned, especially as we move towards midnight. This is the first wave, and then you got this other trigger down here, and this right here. This is coming in behind this wave. So why am I concerned about it? Look, it's going to be towards the evening, instability falls off. Why worry about this at all? Well, let me take a look at the SKU-T here. This is from Tropical Tidbits, an outstanding website and free. So if you want to ever dive into some of the data in there, it's absolutely outstanding, along with their data for tropical systems. Clearly, we have an unstable atmosphere. You see this right here? This is the mid-level winds. They're getting a little bit stronger. We have an impressive moisture gradient here. Again, this is from the spc.noaa.gov, a free government website. Well, not free. You pay for it with your tax dollars. But what we can see here is clearly a moisture gradient setting up with some precipitable water values up to 2 inches. Now, why is this important? Okay, so when you have precipitable water values above 1.5 and especially around 2, you introduce thunderstorms capable of lifting a lot of moisture that can produce, of course, very heavy downpours, but also because you have this enhancement of water vapor and moisture in the atmosphere, it increases the potential for frequent, vivid lightning, and also what we call downburst wind gusts. Go back to our SKU-T here. You see this dry air up here? Well, all this moisture is getting lifted into this column of air. And when that lifting occurs, it condenses. And when that condensation happens, the atmosphere cools. So what happens is that you kind of get this ball of colder air, and it's heavier than the surrounding environment. So what happens is basically you have a rock of air that's going to slam to the ground. And when you have that situation, it can produce very strong wind gusts. This is what we call straight line wind gusts, okay? That's basically what you're seeing is the rapid descent and then expansion of cooler air from the center of the thunderstorm down towards the surface. So this is concerning on its own. But what I've been watching is the 850 millibar winds. Let's make sure we get this in HD. And again, this is from earth.newschool.net. And what I'm watching for is this jet streak right around here. You see, what happens in the summer and early fall is that you can get these jet streaks that become a little bit stronger, mostly because of the difference in thermal gradients from the mid-level of the atmosphere to the surface. And when you have that vertical thermal gradient setting up, and you have a weak jet streak to begin with, which is what we see here, the jet streak strengthening mixes up the atmosphere and enhances the lifting and can produce thunderstorms that are capable of very strong wind gusts. Now, the good news is that we're not dealing with like a 50 or 60 knot wind gust, but at 25 knots, combined with all this moisture in the atmosphere, you get downburst wind gusts just at the right time, mixing down some of these stronger winds. It can create wind damage and power outages. So it is something that we're watching very, very carefully. So this line of thunderstorms is going to continue to dive south, and it's running along this divergent gradient here. So you see the divergence here that's setting up here. So you're getting a little bit of rising air here. That's diving right into central New Jersey, which is what I warned about this afternoon, saying, hey, I'm seeing a lot of these observations coming in, and these thunderstorms just started to spark in central Pennsylvania. And I actually talked about this last night in the Long Range Thoughts for you premium members that definitely had a chance to read it. I was concerned that, hey, look, this could lead to a wave of thunderstorms. And the mesoscale models were having a difficult time handling it, but we're clearly showing that threat potential. So, as you can see on the water vapor satellite picture, in fact, let's refresh this real fast and see if we get even newer data. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you can see that divergent influence here, and there's the thunderstorm starting to dive south. This right here is your Western Atlantic Ridge. Here is your trough coming in. We're caught in the middle. Get used to hearing that quite a bit over the next, 6 to 8 weeks, where we are going to be in a fight between the Western Atlantic Ridge and troughs that are going to be moving from the Eastern Great Lakes to the Canadian Maritimes. Unfortunately, that means that there will be some bouts of hot and humid conditions, but also shifts back to very cool conditions. So kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type of weather pattern setting up for the early fall. So again, plenty of moisture in the atmosphere diving in. That's going to continue on through tomorrow, where that moisture is going to get suppressed and the maritime air mass is going to take hold. It's going to be much, much cooler tomorrow. But you can see that initial gradient here. That's going to support those thunderstorms diving in. Not too bad tomorrow and Friday. A few isolated showers. And then on Saturday, we get our next cold front with more potential for some high moisture. Remember I said anything over 2 inches is trouble. And that's exactly what we're seeing here, setting up for Saturday evening. And 500 millibar PVA for tonight, not much. Very weak, right? Not very impressive at all for the overnight period. Very, very weak short waves. So this is primarily being driven by your jet streak developing and the moisture gradient. So our thunderstorm threat is driven by this moisture gradient and this jet streak. And that is what these thunderstorms are riding along, and they're reaching severe levels because of those winds mixing down within the thunderstorm, creating those strong wind gusts. By the way, iced coffee tonight, not bad. So, oh yeah, Susan made them. Absolutely outstanding. The severe thunderstorm warning that is being issued, let's see here, this is for East Hunterdon County, Northeastern Mercer, Somerset County, Central Monmouth County, that's right here, and Middlesex County. And this thunderstorm, as I was saying, it's being radar indicated of 60 mile per hour wind gusts. This is why we got a generator. This is going to be outstanding. So that is what's driving these thunderstorms, and you can see that very nicely here on the HRR showing up. And here comes our second wave. This right here, as it's diving in, the HRR is saying, hey, this could be an issue towards midnight for central and southern New Jersey. So let's say Burlington, Ocean, Atlantic, you get it. So that could be pretty interesting. And a lot of this is being driven by the 850 millibar jet streak. So through the overnight period, let's get to about midnight here, you can see this jet streak here igniting the second wave. Earlier on, there's the first wave. So you can see how this 850 millibar jet streak mixes up the atmosphere, enhances the atmosphere. These type of thunderstorms are primarily downburst wind gusts. They do not create tornadoes. So if anyone's concerned about that, no tornadoes expected. However, the way that the National Weather Service is kind of warning for thunderstorms is for should I say tornadoes, is more based off of mesoscale lows forming into thunderstorms and turning. That can easily be considered just a mesoscale low that enhances heavy rainfall and not necessarily a tornado. So I probably shouldn't say that there is no chance of a tornado warning, but an actual tornado being observed, less likely, very, very small percentage of that happening in this type of environment. Mostly it's just downburst wind gusts, and that's what's being warned now. On the NAM guidance, it's showing the same setup here. So when I was looking at this mesoscale guidance between the HRR and the NAM, I do not take any of these models verbatim. Okay, you don't want to do that because you're going to end up with a ton of error. During the winter, a lot of people try to do that. And they say, oh, look, the heavy snowband is going to definitely set up here. Sometimes the models nail it. But you kind of put yourself in a situation where you kind of box yourself into an all or nothing as far as verification, which for some people, I used to do that in my 20s, kind of like an ego thing. But as I've gotten into my 30s, now 40s, now I'm 45, so I kind of almost feel a little bit aged. I won't say old, aged. Fine wine, honey. Fine wine. There you go. I've learned that, you have to leave your ego on the sideline and prepare your audience or your clients the best way possible. And the best way possible is to explain what the situation is, which is these thunderstorms diving in, what the threat impact is, in this case, wind gusts over 55 miles per hour, and then say, look, generally we're looking at central New Jersey, southern New Jersey through the overnight time period. I'm obviously not Connecticut, right? So that's how you kind of go by it. Some people, they like to try to nail it down by the towns, and that can really, really put other people, if your forecast is off, into a bad situation. On the European guidance, it's basically showing the same thing. Now, for tomorrow on through Friday, you're going to have this stationary front hanging around the region, right? And it's going to spark off a few showers, maybe an isolated thunderstorm. But for the most part, we're looking at cloudy conditions and much cooler. We're talking about the 70s, almost 20 degrees colder in many locations tomorrow. And the reason why is because of the maritime air mass that builds in. So the end of the week is, I would call it unsettled, cloudy, cool, chance of a few showers, maybe a little bit of drizzle in the morning hours. And then when we get to Saturday, what happens, let me go back to this right here. On Saturday, we get another trough invading, and that pushes the warm front through, and then we get our first cold front. Now, you might be saying, Stephen, why a first cold front? Why doesn't the trough build in? Well, we're adjusting the pattern again. We're getting rid of one upper level low and trough that's hanging around the Gulf of Maine, which was this one right here, and we're replacing it with a new long wave trough. And so what happens when you do that, especially during the fall months, is that you kind of get these waves of short waves. And the first short wave comes through in the form of a surface cold front and transports a modified polar air mass. So there is where you get your showers and thunderstorms on Saturday into early Sunday morning. So let's say 4 p.m. Saturday, they start to spark up over eastern Pennsylvania. Saturday evening, those showers and thunderstorms move through. So if you have plans, you might want to change them or at least have some backups. Early Sunday morning, it clears out. Polar air mass starts to come in, but it's modified. Then on Labor Day, we get our next cold front. Not as much moisture in the atmosphere because the atmosphere is much drier. So on Labor Day, that second cold front comes through with a much stronger polar air mass. And how do we know that? Look how dry this air mass is. When you deal with the maritime air mass, your precipitable water values are hanging around a half an inch to an inch. Okay, why? Because you're transporting Atlantic moisture, right? So that makes sense. Polar air mass is coming from, that doesn't mean that it has to be 32 degrees. What a polar air mass is an air mass that is originated in the polar regions, like central Canada. So this air mass is much drier because it's a continental, because it's in the continent, and polar, because it's in a polar region. So you see how that kind of gets named? An example of a maritime polar air mass would be a polar air mass in the polar region that develops over the ocean. So, for example, the Gulf of Alaska. So there is the differences in the air masses. The Canadian maritime air mass is a modified, you can almost call it somewhat polar, but it's more just considered maritime because it's in a temperate zone, not really a polar zone. So we have these different zones of meteorology and source regions. But when you're forecasting, you can see that difference because of this. When your precipitable water values are below a half an inch and approaching a tenth of an inch, very, very dry air, that's how you know you have a true polar air mass. And that will be taking hold on Labor Day, and it's going to feel absolutely beautiful out there. So that is the general theme that we're moving in for the Labor Day weekend, is a bit unsettled for Friday, Saturday. Sunday it improves with just a few isolated showers. And then on Labor Day, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And of course, through the first full week of September, you could expect excellent weather conditions, which makes a whole lot of sense because everyone has to get back to work and go back to school. So once you know, it's going to feel fall-like with temperatures running below normal and generally basically in the 70s. So, it kind of feels like going back to school, getting ready for football, all that good stuff. In the meantime, let's talk about the tropics. Now, we will bounce back and forth to keep an eye on these thunderstorms as they're diving in. In fact, let's see the new data here. And you can see the thunderstorms diving in towards the region. And look at that. We just got a spark of another one starting to show up and another one here. So it's going to be an interesting evening, to say the least. I'm not expecting a lot of severe thunderstorms, but again, you don't want to be caught out in this either. Back to the tropics. Well, it's quiet, isn't it? I did go above normal for the tropical hurricane season. Why? Why did I do that for the Atlantic? Well, okay, we had well above normal Atlantic waters, and La Nina was going to develop. That was back in May. I was looking at it, I'm like, well, we should have a weak La Nina by the time we get to August. Nope. Still don't. We're moving in that direction, but we haven't seen it yet. So the tropical Atlantic is being driven by the MJO, which is called a Madden-Julian oscillation. So think about it like this, okay? When you have an El Nino or La Nina, that is the big player. That's the dominant one. But when you have neither, then the MJO becomes the primary forcing mechanism in the atmosphere, especially during the summer when you just have pretty much tropical forcing as your primary forcing mechanism. When you have El Nino and La Nina in place, then the MJO kind of acts kind of like an enhancement, right? So during El Nino, if you have an MJO in phase 7, 8, and 1, better chance for storms on the East Coast, for example. With La Nina, you have an MJO in phase 4, 5, and 6, more enhancement of those La Nina conditions. Throw in what's going on in the Pacific with the PDO, and then you kind of get an idea of what your weather pattern is going to be. Right now, pretty much everything is as muted as you can possibly get it. Heck, Nino 3.4 is literally 0. Neutral as it can possibly be. The MJO has been in the neutral circle for some time, but now, recently, has been moving through phase 2 and phase 3. Well, phase 2 is a cool phase for us and a suppression of tropical activity. Phase 3 is a hot phase for us, still a suppression of tropical activity. And then phase 4, 5, and 6 is kind of an enhancement of tropical activity. But it's expected to be kind of weak. So when we take a look at what is going on in the Atlantic, the National Hurricane Center was keeping an eye on this, but this is getting torn apart, so not really a threat. Then we got this tropical wave with a bit of a twist here, bit of a turn, but no convection. No, I mean, it's not even close to being developing. So maybe it could spark something around the Lesser Antilles. This has been very impressive coming off the African coast. It has a little bit of a mid-level circulation to it. Not really all that impressive, but it also is battling some cooler waters along the African coast and dry air from the Sahara Desert. So not exactly robust and just ready to roll right off and rapidly intensify. So right now, I mean, if I'm going to be dead honest, unless we see an absolute explosion of activity, my forecast is in trouble. I only went 20. There's some people that went like 30 storms. That is not happening unless we have literally like 10 storms a day popping up. It's going to be very, very difficult to pull off, which is great news. Because I would love to be right about every forecast. But if it means that people aren't going to have their homes destroyed, no flooding, Florida doesn't get wiped out, all that stuff, the Gulf Coast is okay, I will take a bust every year. Gladly. Because no one needs that is for sure. So we're watching Tropical Atlantic. Not much really bubbling up here. The latest model guidance from the European ensembles has something trying to develop here. Notice a lot of these models are turning these storms to the north very quickly. That is part of the fact that we have a little bit of a weakness here in the Western Atlantic Ridge here and here. With our trough dominating here for the most part through August, well, what's left of August, and into September, anything that tries to develop out here is most likely going to get turned out into the Atlantic. So I don't really see any threat for the northern Mid-Atlantic in this scenario. If you have friends and family around the Gulf Coast, look, you got to stay aware. There is some signs here that you could get a tropical low trying to develop here in the Gulf of Mexico and shoot up towards Texas. That's kind of par for the course, especially towards the heart of the hurricane season, which is going to be over the next 2 weeks. So to think that we won't see any activity would be well, unrealistic, but it would be surprising to see nothing. And if that happened, then wow, we are really off on this forecast. But I do think, based on what we're seeing here with the Malgans, with these signals, that there should be some sort of signals trying to pop up here in some sort of storm. We'll have to keep an eye on anything that moves into the Bahamas, as always. But a lot of the Malgans, with the exception of maybe the Canadian Malgans, trying to drive a storm into the Bahamas. Anything, I'd say 75 west, most of those storms, most of the Malgans is turning everything to the north or keeping it down to the Caribbean, which basically means the northern Mid-Atlantic is okay. So that's certainly some good news. So yes, I do expect some activity to increase, especially with where the MJO is moving and the fact that we're moving towards the climatological height of the season. But I'm certainly not seeing anything that will break out this season to reach anywhere near what was forecasted, which I will take in a heartbeat. Thank you very much. In terms of the development of our La Nina, one of the things that I study is the SOI. There's a lot of people that, because of climate change and warmer waters, they're trying to change the definition of a Enzo event and trying to adjust the numbers. I think this is an error because you're just adjusting the statistics. You're not addressing the forcing mechanisms. Okay? Statistics are cute and nice, much like baseball, but it doesn't matter what your statistics say if you can't hit the ball, right? Well, in terms of the SOI, it doesn't matter what your statistics say. Say, well, if we adjust it, then it is a La Nina. Well, guess what? Your forcing mechanisms say you're full of it. And that's essentially what we have here for most of the summer. When the SOI is negative, even weakly negative, that's not La Nina. That's more El Nino than anything else. So in this setup here, what we have is we're trending towards neutral and we're just starting to inch towards positive. That's the 30-day average here. When it's this weak, you really can't call it La Nina. You want to at least get above 5, okay? 1, 5, 10, there we go, okay? So that's generally my rule. Same thing negative side as well. So right now we're not seeing strong forcing. We're still slowly developing, but we are starting to see the waters cool gradually. So clearly we are moving in that direction. But this La Nina, when it develops, likely won't take hold in terms of the 500 millibar pattern mid-September, October. Okay? So now we're getting past the heart of the hurricane season. And we have to realize the fact that this La Nina is going to be very weak and very east-based. So that's going to have an influence on your forecast for the fall and, yes, the winter. Now, I know I already got questions about, hey, what is the winter going to be like? I'm still working on it. There's a lot that we still have to study. Premium members, as I move through the fall, every day I'm issuing a little tidbit of my thoughts on what I'm looking at and the updates as we go through the fall. I treat them as kind of like a way of me discussing, me walking through what I'm seeing. And in terms of the tropical forcing, I do think we see a La Nina, but I think it's very weak. I think it's east-based. And why is that important? Orientation and strength matter quite a bit. Strength, obviously, because if you have a strong La Nina, you kill the subtropical jet. The polar jet just runs rampant and just destroys anything, and you don't have any chance for any type of interaction. You get a few strong clippers, but usually your winters are very mild, much like a strong El Nino. Anything strong in the Enzo world is mild for you. So there's that. When you have a weak La Nina, you can still get a subtropical jet pumping up. You still have to watch out for the southeast ridge, but it can get knocked down a little bit easier. You have a little bit better potential for winter storms. Yes, even for the northern mid-Atlantic. Every so often you get a rogue year where you could pop off an above normal snow season. A few of them are pretty much average with a lot of wintry mix type scenarios. So there's that. Why does orientation matter? Well, what we're looking for next is where does the convection develop? And so when I have warm water here and I have a thermal gradient here, most of your convection is going to develop here. And when your thunderstorms develop here, that leads to rising air and lifting, which enhances the polar jet stream, and away we go. Now, does that mean that storms are going to be coming and winter storms, and you snow producing guys, or you snow removal guys, you guys are getting really excited? Slow your roll, because it's only one part of the equation. So a lot of interesting things evolving with that. In terms of the fall, what this will mean is that our polar jet stream will continue to get stronger, and we should see, typically during La Nina falls, weak or strong, you end up with more robust polar air masses invading the region. You get more likely to see near to below normal temperatures for the fall, in October and November especially, and you have a better potential for storms that redevelop off the Delmarva Peninsula via clippers that are diving in from the Ohio River Valley. Now, whether they become major storms, well, that comes down to what is going on with the negative NAO. And in fact, here, let me pull back some data here first. The latest model guidance out to 46 days suggests a negative NAO pattern through September and into early October. What does that mean for us? Okay. It's not the same blocking regime that you get in the winter. Why? Because we have changing wavelengths. See, we don't have the same polar air masses yet. So we don't have the same polar jet stream amplifications. We don't have the same thermal gradients in the vertical and the horizontal. So you're dealing with a different environment, a developing environment. You tend to have more troughs around the Canadian Maritimes, more Canadian maritime air masses are available. You tend to have a lot of troughs swinging through the northern Mid-Atlantic and then kind of hanging out around the Canadian Maritimes and the Gulf of Maine. This environment typically keeps tropical systems away. One thing we always have to watch out for is any type of weakness that's in the Tennessee River Valley. But thus far, I don't see anything that would indicate that. And one of the orientation factors in this environment is that we have a positively tilted trough regime. What that basically means is that the troughs are like oriented like this. One second. So the troughs are oriented like this. Negative tilted troughs are like this. Why are negative tilted troughs more important in this scenario for the fall, especially when dealing with tropical systems? Well, look, the winds pull in towards the coast. Positive tilt, it pulls away from the coast. Southwesterly winds. So southeasterly winds with negative, southwesterly winds with positive. Why am I expecting more positively tilted troughs in this scenario? Well, the QBO. Again, it's never just one piece, but a combination of everything and how they interact. A westerly QBO means that winds at the stratosphere are moving at the same direction as the polar jet stream. They're not counteracting with each other. So this means that the overall jet stream is more progressive. This doesn't mean you can't get high latitude blocking in the late fall and winter months. It just means that it's better chance of getting ripped apart and knocked down very quickly. It's very, very difficult to sustain it unless you have another factor acting on the atmosphere, which is possible, and I don't know about that yet until we get a little bit closer. But the overall theme is that everything's moving quickly. Nothing's really slowing down. And when you have that type of environment, you tend to have positively tilted troughs. So when you combine this signal with our La Nina signals trying to develop, and with that negative NAO signal that's basically telling me look for troughs around the Canadian Maritimes, And you might be asking, hey, why are there going to be troughs around the Canadian Maritimes? Well, you see all this warm water here? All this warm water creates a gradient, a vertical thermal gradient, which leads to falling 500 millibar heights and a better chance for that negative NAO signal. So we have all these factors come together. Again, notice not just one factor, but all these factors come together. And so when they start to interact and work together, you start to see a pattern starting to evolve. And that pattern is progressive, active, influences from polar and maritime air masses, more likely to have near normal temperatures, below normal precipitation. I don't see any threat of any type of tropical system invading our region in this setup, but I can't rule out something in terms of like a remnant low coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. And so I'm not surprised when I see the evolution over the next 15 days on the European ensembles. Not much is changing there. And in terms of our 46-day model, again, not much is really changing. You get your trough around the Gulf of Alaska, pushing into the Pacific Northwest. And oh, by the way, as you move on through the fall, this trough is going to tighten up because of the amplification increasing. So what you're going to start to see is the ridge either building on the West Coast or over the Rockies. And then depending on how that orientation sets up, it sets your polar jet stream driving into the Great Lakes and driving those polar air masses in. And in terms of our negative NAO signal, yeah, you kind of see it here popping up here, especially with near to slightly below normal heights here. But again, it's not a true negative NAO that some people are thinking of. It's more of a scenario where you're going to get a lot of upper level lows hanging out around here that are going to try to pop off and then get kicked out just as easily. And you're going to get a lot of backdoor cold fronts trying to drive south. And that is generally where we are at. Now that I've walked through everything, let's do a quick check of our thunderstorms. And we'll refresh this. And look at that. It's starting to weaken, which is great news. We'll watch out for these other clusters as we move on through the evening hours. Again, I'm not expecting widespread severe thunderstorms, but some of these thunderstorms are going to pack a bit of a punch. So with that, let me answer your questions. And of course, we'll start off with the live chat, the premium live chat, and I'll get to the social media in just a moment. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Saw that the Discovery, this is from Card Shark, saw that the Discovery Channel and Wiki are both calling last year's moderate El Nino a super Nino, presumably political agenda. I would say just bad data. It wasn't a super El Nino. I know that some people were trying to call it a super El Nino, but it wasn't. It was a moderate El Nino based on all the data we always use, especially based on the SOI data. There was no sign of this being a super El Nino. We lived through super El Ninos. Anyone remember 1998? That's where our sea surface temperatures in 3.4 were well above normal, pushing into the threes. So no, it was not a super El Nino. That would be a mistake. Good evening, Andrew. What does Saturday look like? Would be the best worst times of day and night along the Garden State Parkway in Atlantic City. Well, on Saturday, during the morning and early afternoon hours shouldn't be too bad. I'm looking for this line of thunderstorms in the evening hours, so 5, 6, 7, 8, that time period, and then diving through towards midnight. TRW just rolled through 0.72 inches of much needed rain in western New Jersey. That's from Dave Dauber. Awesome. Looks like the blob of rain will clip parts of Union County. Yep. Also looking at Earth New School, the expansion of cold air is noticeable at 850 millibars, and especially 700 millibars. And there is definitely still a weak but clear counterclockwise circulation at 70 millibars. So right now, this time of year, we're just starting to develop our polar air masses. I'm going to start covering that more next week once we get into actual meteorological fall to watch the evolution of a polar air mass as we move through the fall months. We're just starting to get signs of Siberian snow starting to kick off, so we're going to be watching that. And we're going to be watching the evolution of not only the polar air mass at 850 millibars, but at the surface as well, to give us an idea of the type of air masses we're going to be dealing with. But certainly we are starting to see that process get kickstarted. And yes, humidity was and always is disgusting. Only a couple days left in August, and the 18th EGFS still not spitting up any hurricanes out to 15 days. When the GFS doesn't do it, you know something's off. You know what I mean? So certainly very, very interesting. In terms of YouTube, let's see what we got here. Do you think the Atlantic Ocean will heat up with more storms in September? I think that climatologically speaking, there should be some tropical storms that pop up. I would be careful with some individuals getting overexcited about this and saying, oh, here comes the Atlantic, it's going to rip. It should during the middle of September. That's literally the heart of the hurricane season. It's kind of like kind of funny to hear, people get like very excited during the spring when we have a lot of tornadoes in Tornado Valley. Like, oh my God, so many tornadoes. I'm like, yeah, you're in Tornado Alley in Texas. Congratulations. It's like, it's what you would expect. And believe me, I lived out there. And people out there are like, yeah, another one, no big deal. They are well prepared for it. They don't get startled. But yeah, I definitely expect more of an increase. Let's see here. Last several winters, the Southeast Ridge has been dominant. Not the South. You know what we've been dealing with the past couple of winters, both with La Nina and with El Nino, is that the timing of these short waves have been off by just a little bit, especially last year. Before that, yeah, you had a lot of La Nina influence, obviously. Moderate La Nina, strong La Nina. The Southeast Ridge can create a lot of havoc because it pushes the storm track to the north. You end up with a lot of wintry mix scenarios. None of those storms were weak La Ninas. So that factor could be interesting for us. But I don't like that with a westerly QBO, because that really makes it difficult to lock in your high latitude blocking. Then again, knowing meteorology, we had literally a perfect environment for high latitude blocking. If you remember, all the model guidance was going freaking insane, right? Remember that? The European, the GFS, the Canadian, CFS, all of them, a massive negative NAO, flatlined. So maybe this year we luck out. Any questions on the NAM? On the NAM. Any questions on... I'm doing good. Any questions on X or Facebook or...
Hold on. I've only seen on Instagram. I'm not sure the legit stuff.
We have Thunder... Meanwhile, let me jump back to our latest radar. The thunderstorms are diving in. Let's add in...
The other one's outside your scope, so yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Take a look at your questions here.
It's right there, right in front of,
All right.
between the request thing.
What is the best roof for handling all the sudden downpours? Oh, that's a good one. Look, I am not one to do handiwork.
That's what we leave it to the experts for.
Yeah, that's why I get a contractor, especially in New Jersey.
You
So
also
I
talk
really...
to a housing inspector and ask their
Oh,
advice.
yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say talk to a housing inspector. That's what we did when we bought our house. Made sure that everything was good. But I don't know about a best roof. I honestly don't. I mean, generally, whatever standard in New Jersey works out pretty well. But we have our house inspected, so just to make sure. But
Avoid tin, though.
Yeah, that would be true. No tin. Does anyone do tin anymore? I guess maybe campers, right? Or mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would not be good. But I'm not really much of a housing expert, so nor do I play one on TV because then the house would probably collapse. I'm not handy at all in any way, shape. It is hilarious. Um, I'm really good at breaking
I'm
stuff.
the one looking at the tools in Home Depot.
Yeah, yeah. My wife is far handier than me. I'm good at.
I'm alright.
No, well, come on.
I can do minor things.
Compared to me, I look. See, I got damage already. So
Wreck-It Ralph.
yes, exactly. Let's see here. Our thunderstorm's diving in. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. And let's do some overlay. We'll do county, city. We'll zoom in some more. And let's see here. Now, this thunderstorm that's diving in, it has a little bit of a bow to it. Very, very, very faint bow. Okay. And so what this tells me is that we still have the downburst winds. In terms of the warning, it's suggesting still the primary concern is the 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts diving through northeastern Ocean County, northeastern Mercer, Monmouth County, and Middlesex County. So it's diving through. Very impressive. Let's see if we have any lightning with this. Let's see if the lightning... Oh, yeah, there it is. Bless you. So, remember what I said about the high precipitable water values? The high precipitable water values creates more friction in the atmosphere. And so that leads to lightning. So the higher the precipitable water values, the better chance you have vivid lightning. Well, that's certainly happening here. It's certainly showing up here very nicely. So it's on a line. Let's see if we get some more data here. Maybe storm track. And we'll pause this. So we have one cell here that's going to be diving towards Adams and Haven Homes over the next 46 minutes. It's moving at about 36 miles per hour. There's an 80% chance for hail. Max hail size about a half an inch. Another portion of the cell, let's see here, probability of hail 100%. Chance of severe hail about 25%, about 0.75 inch hail size. Let's see here. No sign of any type of circulation in the atmosphere. So the cell is moving at 26 miles per hour. It's mixing in some of the winds that are in the mid levels, and that's how you're getting your wind gusts pushing at times over 55 miles per hour up to about 60 miles per hour. But when you're looking for tornadoes with this data, what you're looking for is a data called TVS. Okay, TVS is an actual tornadic circulation. Meso is a meso low that is enhancing rainfall. In this case, there's no sign of either, but certainly plenty of vivid lightning setting up here. Very impressive stuff. So it looks like, hey, look, it's going to be perfect just in time for the live chat to end. This storm's going to be coming right through. Hopefully we'll continue to have power. As always, if you have any questions about these storms or anything else, feel free to ask while we are working through everything. You can actually start to hear the thunder coming in right now. But again, no sign of any type of tornadic circulation. I'm going to zoom out here. Now, when we look at this, you see all this green that's hanging around here. Part of this is not reaching the ground, but what happens is as the thunderstorms grow and expand, some parts of the upper portion of those thunderstorm clouds are producing the heavier rainfall, and so you get this heavy rainfall behind the line of thunderstorms that could easily add a quick half an inch of rain. So this is all driving in, but the primary leading edge is the primary severe threat out of this. And honestly, in terms of the setup, the HRR and the NAM did a pretty damn good job of showing the potential here. So win for both of the convective models here on handling this. Let's see if I can get the new HRR guidance. Let's see if I can find it. It's one of these things. Here we are. So we're going to upload the new HRR. Let's see if we have anything new here. Now the HRR guidance updates about every hour. This is what they call futurecasts on TV. So whenever they say futurecast, I don't know, Channel 9 enhanced radar, whatever the hell they want to call it. All this is the HRR. That's all it is. So it looks like after these thunderstorms dive through that we might actually get a nice little reprieve based on the latest guidance. So that's certainly some good news. So the reason why that might be the case is that these thunderstorms are overwhelming the atmosphere so much that as a result, anything behind it isn't having a chance to develop despite the strengthening jet streak. All the dynamics are diving into this cell here and basically overwhelming. We have another cell here over towards, let's pause this for a minute. Okay, this is diving through northern New Jersey. And looks like it's moving from Denville to Tabor, Fox Hill, Rockaway, and then off towards, I can never say this town right, Parsippany. Never. I always screw it up, even when I was a little kid. Let's see here. It's moving at 18 miles per hour. Again, no sign of any type of tornado or mesoscale lows. That's great news. No hail. Plenty of lightning, though, that is for sure. And very heavy rainfall. A new update here. And the cell is moving now at 40 miles per hour. So it's increasing in speed as it's diving in towards the region. And let's see, and we got our first mesoscale low indication with a cell that is diving, of course, right towards our neck of the woods. Let's see here, not bad. Okay, so it's moving at 22 miles per hour, 2 mesoscale lows, enhancing the heavy rainfall. Plenty of lightning, not much in the way of hail. So this part of the cell is moving through Jamesburg and heading towards central Monmouth County and basically right into Freehold here. That's producing some very intense heavy rainfall. What does the northern part of this wave showers and storms look like? Oop, let me zoom out here. So once this cluster moves through, we're pretty much in the clear. Some heavier rainfall, but nothing too severe. Primarily the severe threat of this storm, of this complex, is basically focusing right down into Monmouth County in New Jersey. Clouds being lit up well by lightning, but no rain and wind. What is your feeling about the potential for rain and possible amount in Pemberton? Looks like anywhere between a half an inch and a quarter of an inch of rain from these thunderstorms overall. Not seeing much in the way of wind gusts, strong wind gusts around there, but definitely some moderate to heavy rainfall. Let's see here. And no new data yet, but that's a great question, Bill. So the other thing I'm noticing here is that as this cell is diving in, it's not weakening all that much while moving through Monmouth County. As it's moving into Monmouth County. Let's see if we got any new data here on this. Nothing new yet. But excellent question, Bill, as always. Have we got anything new? YouTube, anything new on X or Facebook, hon?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
Facebook sucks to keep knocking me out.
Yeah, well, at least they're not tracking you yet. Let's see here. New update coming in. Again, notice the bowing nature of this. So why are we seeing this bowing nature? So what's happening is that the core jet streak in the mid-levels is driving faster than the surrounding area. So you're getting this push right? So think of it this way. Let's say that you're moving some furniture. If you're moving it parallel to the actual position of the furniture, you can't move it very well. But when you're driving perpendicular, you're driving right into the furniture, you can move it much faster, right? Now add in 2 people, right? So now you're moving even faster. This is a sign that air is moving very quickly right towards the coast of Monmouth County. And so you're getting this bowing, you're getting this setup developing here as a result. And so you get this thunderstorm impact here as a result, with the potential for very impressive lightning and heavy, heavy downpours. The good news is that this is all moving very fast. This does not look like a flash flooding event, in my opinion, based on how fast this is all moving. In the event like we saw a couple weeks ago in Connecticut, where they had 5 to 10 inches of rain, that was a situation where you had what's called training, where these thunderstorms basically continue to move over the same area. In this case, it's moving fast and it's blasting out of there very, very quickly. And the wind's starting to pick up as well. It's in the observations I have outside. So it's definitely something is on the way. And with that, we are approaching 9 p.m. And we're getting ready for thunderstorms. And we are starting to, yep, now it's pouring out.
Oh my god.
Wow. Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, the wind's tripping the lights off outside. It tripped the light over here.
Wow. Okay, so we're getting the strong winds. So what's happening is that the winds, this is called an outflow boundary, right? So what's happening is that because the rain cool air is crashed onto the surface, it's rushing through. We're getting the heavy rainfall coming in right now. It's all driving into the region. And now we're starting to approach the heart of this thunderstorm complex, probably in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So let's see, how is it looking outside, hon?
That's what I'm taking at. Yep, it's tripping off the lights.
Whew. Heavy rain.
Raining, but it's really windy.
That is the outflow boundary. There we go.
Everybody's security lights are getting tripped off.
Everyone's lights are flashing. So I tell you what, we're going to call it a night now because we're most likely going to lose power for a minute.
No, I have the things outside. Do I have to go put them away?
I think we'll be okay.
The blow molds.
Okay, we're going to end now and protect some of our property. So I will, again, thank you as always for joining and for following along. And as always, stay safe out there.